Real Estate Transfer Disclosure Statement, TDS. Statement disclosing material facts. The TDS, or Real Estate Disclosure Statement, is a long list of disclosures which the seller fills out for the listing agent. The purpose of the TDS is to jog the seller's memory so that as much relevant disclosure can be included in the sale papers or sale contract. Material information is information that, if the buyer had known, he or she might not have purchased the property. Since it's hard to know what, quote, material, end quote, means to each buyer, full disclosure protects the buyer, the seller, and the broker from after the transaction issues, i.e., lawsuits. The TDS is the statement disclosing material facts to be included in the sales contract. Gross lease. Tenant pays one price. Landlord pays all other expenses. A gross lease is mostly what is used when a person rents an apartment. The renter pays a set price, and out of that money, the landlord pays the maintenance, expenses of the property, property taxes, and property insurance. The opposite of a gross lease is often called a triple net, NNN lease. Under a triple net lease, it is the renter who pays a base rent, then any taxes, property maintenance, and property insurance on the property above and beyond the base rent. The triple net lease is typical for retail space in a larger shopping center, for example. The property manager will send out gardeners, parking lot cleaners, etc., and then divide the bill by all tenants and ask them to pay their part. They will do likewise with property taxes and property insurance. Individuals usually pay a gross lease when renting. Businesses usually pay a triple net lease on a commercial property. Freehold estate. Estate in real property which continues forever. An estate is a manner in which a property is held or owned, and a freehold estate is ownership which has no time limits, and the property can be sold or inherited. A freehold estate should be contrasted with a less than freehold estate, which is the estate held by a renter. There is a little more complication, as there are two types of freehold estates: life estates, which are based on the life of a specific person, parentheses. In other words, a freehold estate that does have a time limit, end parentheses, and estates in fee, of which there are two: fee simple absolute or fee simple qualified. Fee simple qualified, or defeasible, is dependent on a condition to be met, parentheses, in other words, does not continue forever, end parentheses, and fee simple absolute, which is the most unrestricted estate possible, lasting indefinitely and can be sold or inherited. For practical purposes, a freehold estate is an estate which continues forever and can be sold or inherited. Just keep in mind there are types of freehold estates, parentheses, life estates, and fee simple qualified defeasible, end parentheses, for which two aspects of the overall definition are restricted. Antonyms: less than freehold estate, leasehold estate. Encroachment. Something extended onto or over another property. A fence which crosses over a boundary line onto an adjoining property would be an encroachment. A tree which is planted on one property but as it grows starts overhanging an adjoining property is encroaching on the adjoining property. Parentheses, because property ownership includes air rights, and parentheses, it is an encroachment. A roof of a structure that extends over a property line is an encroachment. An encroachment is an unauthorized intrusion onto or over the property of another. If the property owner being encroached upon does not object to the encroachment, it can become permanent. Concurrent ownership, owned by two or more people at the same time. The word concurrent means at the same time. So, concurrent ownership is when two or more people own a property at the same time. When two or more people own real property at the same time, we become interested in the ownership details of the parties, which is defined by tenancy. The four types of tenancy are common tenancy, joint tenancy, partnership tenancy, and common property tenancy. The opposite of concurrent ownership is ownership as an individual, or ownership in severalty. Concurrent ownership is when two or more people own real property at the same time. Synonyms: co-ownership. Antonyms: ownership in severalty. Related words: tenancy. Appraisal. Determination of fair market value. An appraiser will use one of the accepted appraisal methods and go through the appraisal process to produce an appraisal report with the goal of arriving at an unbiased opinion of the fair market value of a property as of a given date, parentheses, usually the date of the inspection of the property, and parentheses. Remember that fair market value is what a ready, willing, and able buyer would pay. Accepted methods of appraisal include cost approach, income approach, and sales comparison method, parentheses, using quote comps, end quote, end parentheses. Appraisal reports are written according to the Uniform Standards of Professional Appraisal Practice, USPAP, standards, and there are three types of reports: self-contained, summary, and restricted use. An appraisal is a determination of fair market value of real property. Compensating balance. Deposits that offset loans. Compensating balance is when a bank takes deposits from depositors and then uses that money to lend to those who need loans. The lender may also use other funds to lend, like funds from the Fed, but the compensating balance is the idea that there are deposits which come in and loans which go out. Compensating balance is deposits that offset loans. Contract for sale. Real property installment sales contract. There are many names for this type of transfer: land contract, land sales contract, conditional sales contract, agreement of sale, contract of sale, contract for deed, installment sales contract. A contract for sale is when the current owner sells his real property to another on an installment basis. When the buyer is done making installments, the title is turned over to the new owner. Many call this, quote, creative financing, end quote. Often the original owner has a bank loan or mortgage on the property. If the agreement is not recorded, parentheses, not recommended, end parentheses, then the transaction may not trigger the original owner's mortgage due on sale clause. This is why it is possibly called creative financing, because the buyer may not have to go through the bank loan approval process. A contract for sale is when the current owner sells his real property to another on an installment basis. Condition precedent. Estate with a condition required before the transaction fee. Fee simple defeasible is another way of saying fee simple qualified. Fee simple qualified is an estate for which the title holder, the grantee, has a fee simple title subject to a condition. If the condition is not met, then the title passes back to the grantor. It is a conditional estate based on that condition. A condition subsequent is a condition that must occur after the transaction, and a condition precedent is a condition that must occur prior to the transaction. The classic example is that of a specific use being required of a property. A man sold his property to the city to use as a library. Years later, the city stopped using the property as a library, and the man's heirs demanded the property back. The man's family regained title because the title held by the city was a fee simple defeasible / qualified title, and the condition subsequent was that the property was used as a library. Just as a contrast, a fee simple absolute is a transfer with no conditions. Related words: fee simple qualified, fee simple defeasible, estate in fee, freehold estate. Money encumbrance: financial interest in property of another. To encumber a property means to somehow put restrictions on it. A money encumbrance is a financial issue that affects the ability to transfer the real property. A money encumbrance will restrict the ability to freely buy, sell, or refinance the property. The other type of encumbrance is a physical encumbrance, like an easement. An easement by the electric company to put an electric pole on a property restricts the owner's ability to use that part of the property. A money encumbrance could be a loan on the property, a lien on the property, past due taxes, etc. A money encumbrance is a financial interest in property held by someone other than the owner.